sekarang ni kita tahu bahawa ada ramai ibu bapa yang actually forbid caning their own kids at home dan tidak menggalakkan sesiapa pun merotan anak mereka.
I think now we can finally talk about it. Kita tak pernah menyebut tentang kes ni pun kerana berada di mahkamah, dan secara jujur memang ini adalah sesuatu kes topik dan memang sukar bagi kami sebagai, I think, just as ibu.
I don't think any parent secara sengaja akan abandon anak atau
mengabaikan anak
atau permit anak tu kalau dia tahu anak tu memang akan buat kerja berbahaya tu, memang kata pergilah.
Hello, Assalamualaikum everybody. We're back, Kita Family, dengan episod yang ke 79. 79? Oh, okay. Okay. So di sini Kita Family akan membincangkan perihal yang berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup masyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita, meraihkan masyarakat yang berbilang agama, kaum, kepercayaan, rupa dan juga keupayaan. Kami menghargai hidup secara inklusif, mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakatnya, terutama bagi mereka yang kurang atau berkelainan upaya. Diskusi kita, perbincangan kita biasanya berkisarkan topik-topik berkaitan dengan inilah. Hari ini pun tak kurang. Episod kali ini, actually it's episode chit-chat mak-mak kan? Yeah. Yes. So whenever we do chit-chat, chit-chat usually we take a look at like mungkin isu semasa atau benda yang sedang dibincangkan antara mak-mak ataupun ialah di dalam komuniti kami, komuniti neurodivergent, mereka yang OKU, autistic community, and we have, I think, hari ni topik kami agak, well, for a chit-chat episode is a bit berat lah, I would say, yeah. Kita akan memulakan dengan membincangkan satu isu yang memang panas lah. I don't think it's just isu yang kita sebut dalam komuniti kita sahaja. Oh, sorry, before I forget, who is in the studio today? Sorry, I am Nuri. And I have 2 other people in the studio. Kita tak cukup sampai 5 hari ni. Tapi biasalah kalau cukup korang 3 orang, kita akan merakamkan episod di sebelah kanan terdekat saya, Desiree.
Hai, selamat sejahtera.
Di hujung sana, Anit.
Hello, apa khabar?
So, Didi dengan kakak SK tak dapat bersama. Tapi mereka sudah tentu, ialah terutama bagi topik yang kita akan bincangkan hari ni, dah berikan pandangan masing-masing lah. So we'll share that a little bit, I think. Okay. So today we are going to talk about caning. So merotan. Why are we going to talk about caning? Why has that come up? Well, unfortunately, I think hampir semua pendengar mungkin akan tahu mengapa topik ini telah dibangkitkan semula dalam inilah minggu-minggu terdekat ni. Dah kerana di Malaysia kita telah see, it's so heavy, it's like hard for me to say, macam rasa berat sangat. Ada beberapa kes yang telah berlaku melibatkan keganasan di sekolah, termasuklah satu insiden di mana seorang pelajar perempuan dibunuh. Kes lain termasuk kes di mana ada seorang pelajar lain yang telah dirugul secara beramai-ramai. Ada laporan, bermacam laporan yang berterusan lah tentang insiden yang berkaitan dengan bully, aspek keganasan di antara pelajar sebenarnya. So telah berlaku di dalam sekolah. So bila kita melihat kepada benda-benda seperti ini berlaku, mulalah pelbagai perbincangan, pandangan tentang apa yang dapat kita lakukan untuk memastikan, kalau boleh memastikan atau nak cuba sebaik mungkin nak kurangkan insiden seperti ini berlaku di masa hadapan, right? We don't want any of these things to happen again. So, sudah tentu perbincangan akan melibatkan aspek disiplin di sekolah, and of course in Malaysia, di sekolah kebangsaan, kita telah lama membenarkan rotan sebagai satu tindakan disiplin di sekolah. Okay. Now, why are we talking about it? Memandangkan kita selalunya membincangkan hal yang berkaitan dengan masyarakat kita lah, ya. So, I think, well, it's a very, very straightforward answer to that. Kita nak tahu kalau merotan akan digalakkan semula, atau mungkin akan menjadi satu pilihan tindakan dalam kes-kes seperti ini jika ada pelajar OKU, pelajar-pelajar neurodivergent yang terlibat. Now, what does that mean? Right? Okay, so let's just get into it right away. Who wants to start?
Okay.
Okay, I need go. We're both looking at you.
Looking at you.
Come.
Okay. I think this comes from my perspective as a mother of boys. Sebab Kementerian Pendidikan ada menyatakan bahawa rotan ini akan diperkenalkan semula sebagai satu tindakan disiplin bagi anak-anak lelaki. Khususnya.
So it's already clear
that
pelajar perempuan tidak akan dikenakan rotan.
Yeah, that seems to be what is out in the news.
It's in the circular.
Yeah.
But we also have a statement kan daripada kementerian bahawa akan ada pengkajian tentang the whole thing. I mean the guidelines, which is why we're talking. Sorry, I totally should not have interrupted.
No. Which is why we're talking about it. Yeah. Because at first we thought it's for boys, and then we also hear that mungkin akan kaji semula, tengok kalau perlu untuk murid-murid yang lain, which is a very vague sort of statement.
Yeah, we don't know. They're just looking at it, right? Okay, but what
is very clear is they are re-looking at introducing the rotan in schools. I think that's very clear. And they are re-looking at probably starting off with the boys. So, okay. My issue is this. We have boys who are full of energy. If we are judging boys and girls on the same level, they are just not. Forget about the fact whether they are neurodivergent or not. And we definitely know that more boys are diagnosed to be on the spectrum or neurodivergent compared to girls. We don't have the reasons for it specifically, but we have data to show that kebanyakan lebih banyak lelaki lah yang akan didiagnose untuk menjadi neurodivergent. But my question is this, are we trying to fit the boys into the same box as a girl? Sebab kalau kita buat katalah circle time, okay, budak lelaki tak boleh, dia orang kan fidgety, dia orang tak boleh duduk diam. And then because of that, dia mungkin ADHD, dia mungkin the labeling starts there. And then ini masalah disiplin, tak boleh duduk diam ya, ambil rotan.
But okay, right? So secara sejarah, right? Okay. Apakah jenis-jenis kesalahan yang sebelum inilah melibatkan tindakan merotan ni?
Okay, secara sejarah is tindakan disiplin, like things that go wrong in school,
right?
So ada discipline issues, tapi for me,
the discipline issues have been quite wide. Is that why you're worried?
It's
because I'm thinking takkanlah tak boleh duduk diam terus rotan.
Yeah.
Mesti ada tindakan disiplin yang lain sebelum rotan. But then, is it... Okay, so are you saying it's because rotan ni di bawah budi bicara guru besar?
Absolutely.
Right?
And budi bicara
So
guru
there has
disiplin.
been budi bicara and tindakan rotan untuk bermacam kes
Untuk
disiplin.
bermacam-macam kes.
Okay.
Okay.
I get why you're worried. Okay, silakan.
So
teruskan.
when it's bermacam-macam case, then it's the discretion of the tenaga pengajar and guru disiplin. Kalau guru tenaga pengajar itu tak boleh dah deal with a child, katalah, budak ni memang masalah disiplin lah.
Repeat offender.
Rujuk kepada guru disiplin.
Okay.
Nama naik kepada guru besar. Then there is a potential. The other thing that bothers me about this caning thing is it applicable to anak-anak OKU? Sebab kita tahu, as Desiree likes to say, anak kita kan behaviour. And is that behaviour considered something which is against the buku disiplin ataupun perlu dirujuk untuk tindakan disiplin? Sebab kacau-kacau orang, kalau pergi, sometimes they take other people's things just because they have got this urge to go and take it. Bukannya dia nak mencuri ke apa, dia nak ambil. So things that are considered very serious discipline issues in school, macam mencuri, getting physical in school, kadang-kadang menjadi masalah yang anak-anak neurodivergent atau OKU akan mengalami bila ada sensory overload. So these sort of things have to be looked into, and whether discipline issues and rotan is also going to be introduced in PPKI. That is my concern.
Desiree?
Okay, so interestingly, kita ada buat sedikit research lah sebelum episod ni kan. So there is a circular, okay, from Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia that outlines when and how when the rotan can be used sebagai hukuman. So dia mesti ada record.
Okay. Share with us.
Record. Okay.
You
So
got to read it.
satu record mengandungi semua hukuman yang dijalankan di bawah perenggan 1 hendaklah disimpan secara sulit mengikut bentuk yang diluluskan oleh pendaftar. Hukuman yang dikenakan hendaklah direkodkan dengan menyatakan jenis salah laku, bilangan sebatan, bahagian anggota yang dirotan, nama dan tanda tangan perotan dan saksi semasa hukuman dilaksanakan. So they do have some kind, I believe, ada syarat-syarat, there are safety measures in check so that there is no salah laku lah. It's not misused as a punishment. I think in that sense, Ministry of Education has that already, and I think this is from 2003, this circular. Tetapi pada pendapat saya, kita tak boleh guna hukuman yang sama for all these years sebab sekarang ni parenting dah berubah. Okay. How we parent our kids have changed. So if we are saying there's increased violence in school, therefore we are bringing back caning, so it's like fixing violence with violence. In a way, I mean, kita bukannya nak ambil rotan and like, physically abusing them. No, but it's sending a message to our children, regardless of their ability lah, neurotypical ke, neurodivergent, that okay, we are punishing you with violence in a way. So that's one thing. Another thing, semua ibu bapa juga ada different parenting styles. Sekarang ni kita tahu bahawa ada ramai ibu bapa yang actually forbid caning their own kids at home dan tidak menggalakkan sesiapa pun merotan anak mereka. So itu pun boleh menjadi satu isu kemudian. Right? And of course, coming back to our anak-anak yang neurodivergent, mereka yang memegang kad OKU, of course, we hope there will be reasonable accommodation sekiranya it applies to our children with different needs. Tetapi saya juga berharap janganlah nanti orang ramai say, oh, itulah ada kat OKU, so escape lah dari punishment. So it's always a double-edged sword. For me, macam susah nak ada pendapat yang tetap on this particular issue because it's very open-ended. It was the announcement is almost like, okay, benda-benda ni dah berlaku di sekolah all over the country. And I think it's fair to say all over the country. So now, okay, let's bring this back. And then it's very vague after that.
Okay.
Tapi awak kata nak inklusif.
Ya, kan?
Okay. I've got a different take to it. Anak-anak kita yang neurodivergent ni kan very literal. Okay. Kebanyakan kalau kita inklusif, kebanyakan budak-budak lain yang memang nak bully. Okay. Akan buat belakang tirai. Dia tak buat depan cikgu. Dia akan irritate. Dia akan buat tingkah laku dia bukan depan orang yang boleh tegur ataupun boleh mendisiplin dia. Okay. So kadang-kadang bila dia buat belakang tirai, anak-anak neurodivergent ni, dia akan tahan. And then kalau dah sampai satu tahap yang dia tak boleh tahan, dia akan react. And that happens very often. And kadang-kadang the reaction happens depan-depan guru. Sebab anak neurodivergent ni very literal. Dia tak tahu nak react tu. Tak pilih masa dan waktu.
Okay, so Anit, basically you are outlining how this can happen lah. Because I was about to say, biasanya anak-anak kita yang ND atau OKU ni, diorang yang dibuli.
Betul.
Bukan pembuli. But you're saying that, katalah dia adalah seorang mangsa.
Ya,
Dan
mangsa
dia kerap
dibuli.
dibuli.
Betul.
Mungkin apa yang kita akan nampak adalah bila dia tak tahan dan
Ya, reaksi dia akan keluar.
Wow,
I can see it already.
Akan keluar and
itulah yang akan dilihat oleh semua.
ya,
Pembuli still escape lah.
pembuli still escape and
Pembuli
yang
jadi victim.
Ya, yang kena disiplin tu orang yang membuat reaksi depan cikgu. Sebab dia tak pilih masa dan waktu. So that to me is very
That's
concerning.
when we can see that an act of violence and aggression can happen from
A
a
neurodivergent child.
neurodivergent child. Okay.
Because it's a reaction that does not see a time and place. It just
Okay.
sees the time where they cannot take it anymore.
Tapi setelah tu
kadang-kadang-
dia akan
Dihukum.
dinilai dan dihukum sebagai orang yang pengganas jugalah.
Pengganas.
Dia juga adalah seorang yang yang telah melakukan satu kesalahan. Ya. Tapi kita nak kata directly dia cuba membela diri, like it's self-defense, it doesn't happen in that moment.
No.
It can happen later. Okay, so there's a lot of issues. Well, I personally was like, okay, like Nazri, you said, we want to include, we want to make sure kalau memang salah laku tu memang benar-benar terjadi and it's not this situation of yours and there is, a kid is still a kid and decides to make wrong decisions. Could be somebody yang memang melakukan sesuatu yang wajar mendapat tindakan disiplin rotan ni. I'm trying to imagine what that reasonable accommodation is going to look like, right? But at the same time, you have to have consequences for this person. Absolutely. You have to have consequences. But I'm also thinking, if the consequences are katalah satu tindakan yang lain, there's many things that can happen, right? Sebagai contoh, you can have school suspension.
Yes.
Yeah.
Detention.
Yeah, there's detention, there's being suspended from school, there's all this,
Community service.
cleaning up school, so many different things. If all those things are possible also, and then we want to talk about, inclusion and being universal, I suppose, Desiree, are you thinking maybe then everybody should have the same thing rather than the rotan?
Absolutely.
You are not for the rotan lah, basically.
For me, I feel in a school context, I feel it is not the place of a teacher or a headmaster maybe. Now in this day and age.
Okay, can I play devil's advocate?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Kadang-kadang pain is the only thing they understand as a consequence. So wouldn't the fact that it can be done be a deterrent?
But then you're just repeating the cycle. If you use this as a you're continuing it, right? So then this person is going to grow up and say, okay, this is the only way I discipline my child. This is the only way I discipline my students if they are teachers.
Okay.
So you're carrying on the cycle of using a form of violence as a measure of discipline. So
Okay.
when does it stop?
To be fair,
Mm.
kalau kita melihat dari sudut daripada kementerian lah dan pihak kerajaan, bagi saya sungguh pun mungkin pada tahap ini lah, ataupun pada masa ni memang kita belum mendengar lagi apakah perancangan yang secara menyeluruh. This is not going to be the only thing that's going to happen lah.
Yeah.
Well, inshallah, I hope that this is not the only thing. Right? That the
I'm
reaction
very
to
sure
this-
it's not. It's
to
not
the
gonna be
rise,
the
yeah.
only thing,
So it's
yes.
not going to be, the only thing that they're going to do, and this is the only option. But okay, I do take your point.
But the other thing, related to the big umbrella topic we're talking about, right? Safety of children in school, the bullying, murder cases, rape cases. I think caning seems like a quick fix band-aid. Like you said, I'm sure and we hope, sangat berharap lah, that there will be a more holistic way of handling it. But I also feel as a human being, not just as a mother, but as a human being, it's a collective responsibility of semua orang. Whether we are cikgu ke, menteri ke, we are anak orang ke, adik orang ke, to ensure our children are safe. It's a collective responsibility. So, we should know. I know parenting is hard. Regardless whether neurodivergent, parenting is hard. But I think we need to take a bit more of an active role in knowing who our children's friends are, apa yang mereka buat. Right? So my point being, if we can have these somewhat preventative measures, then maybe hopefully we come to a point where we don't even need the rotan as a...
So that's quite
It's a
idealistic
concept,
because
yes,
I
it
think
is.
what you're saying, Desri, is semuanya bermula di rumah, pengajaran di rumah.
Not just di rumah. I'm saying even someone, we've come to a point in this society that kadang-kadang bila kita perlukan pertolongan in a very public space, orang just lalu saja, diorang tak tolong. Where is our
Civic mindedness.
civic mindedness? I've been mugged before at the side of the road, tak ada siapa tolong. So where is the civic mindedness where bila kita nampak orang yang dicederakan, somebody comes to your help, comes to your aid. I think we need to bring that.
Well,
back, yeah.
I think, itu antara sebab yang ramai orang kata bukan, kes sekarang meningkat. Tapi sekarang orang sanggup dan, berani melaporkan dan, kerana kita telah sejak kebelakangan ni lebih, nak kata dah sanggup lah untuk memperbincangkan hal ini dan kita tak nak sorok-sorok lagi ke ataupun kita nak nafikan benda ni berlaku. So I think now it's that reporting of the incidents lah. Right? So it's not because tiba-tiba benda ni berlaku, dulu tak pernah berlaku. I don't think anybody thinks that.
No, it's
greater
social awareness.
Yes. Okay, so to me, when you talk about collective responsibility, kalau bagi Nuri lah, I think the collective responsibility should start from and not just at home. So just to be clear that I'm not also going to say that I'm looking into community, because Kita Family also talks about community, but collectively, I think we're going to have to talk about education and awareness again, because it's not just girls who are subject to this kind of violence. Maybe a bit more in some circumstances than boys. I don't have the data, but I do know the data of the fact that a lot of OKU kids are subject to bullying. Kerap kali menjadi mangsa kerana mereka lain, kerana mereka dianggap pelik, kerana mereka
menjadi
tak ada kawan, menjadi bahan, whatever bahan lah, right?
Also tak pandai berkawan. The way they berkawan is a bit
tak ada gap.
different. It's different.
No, dia tak ada gap. Dia ada somebody to back you up. So senang lah untuk bully orang seperti ni kan. So I think that one of the things that has to happen is just we have to talk about this again. It's just about what is the culture, budaya that has led to other kids thinking it's really okay in this day and age. You keep talking about this day and age, and I suppose that's why there's unfortunately people talk about the rotan again. Because in this day and age, there are still people who think it's okay to beat out other people.
And it's okay to call them names, and it's okay to label them.
It's this is like multiple levels of everything, right? Because we have a case where a girl died.
Yep.
So,
A 10-year-old boy was found strangled in a school toilet.
Yeah.
so I think we need to look at everything overall. Like, why is it okay? Where did this come from? That it is okay to hurt somebody else in all different ways, right? Physically is the part that led to death, but we can argue that words, mental abuse, torture, that can lead to that, because it sometimes can lead to the yang dibuli itulah masa mereka tertekan sampai tahap di mana mereka fikirkan untuk membunuh diri, right? So that can result in death as well. So there's a lot of things to talk about. So I think caning became a thing that we sort of looked at, and we got a bit worried about, okay, what are the exact guidelines, who can be. But yeah, I
There's
think
one more angle, Nori.
okay.
Katalah sebelumlah tindakan disiplin macam ni, maybe there has to be a referral to the school counsellor. And kalau school counsellor tu rasa anak ni memang perlu pertolongan dari ataupun diagnosis daripada bakal kanak-kanak developmental pediatrician, perlulah membuat rujukan. But ada isu kalau parent tidak setuju, anak saya okey, kenapa perlu buat rujukan ini? So that I think that one level has to be added to actually investigate as to the cause of such
Behavior.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I think if we can just, this is difficult, it's going to lead to a lot of other stuff also. Tapi kalau lah kita boleh sebut begini ya. Kita merasa khawatir terhadap isu ini, isu rotan, kerana satu, bila kita sebut tentang yalah dasar, syarat-syarat, apakah kiranya langkah-langkah yang diboleh ambil di sekolah dari segi mendisiplin anak ya. Kita nak minta lah bahawa semua pihak yang terlibat akan mengambil kira isu pelajar-pelajar OKU dan neurodivergent, to make sure that we look at all the different angles, to consider what is going to be the guideline and the policy for that. I think kita juga ingin mengatakan bahawa kita tidak di sini terus menyebut bahawa anak-anak OKU sepatutnya terlepas dari disiplin ya.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Kerana mungkin dia lebih cenderung kepada melakukan benda-benda yang di luar kawalan. We're not saying that. I think we feel that perlu ada satu tindakan yang berpatutan, yang bersesuaian mengikut keadaan, right? So whatever that looks like, we really ask the authorities lah to please consider very carefully, and don't forget to look into the issue of the students who are different.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a break.
Yes, please. Thank you.
We'll be back. Okay, we are back with part 2 of Chit Chat, episode kita family, Chit Chat mak-mak, neurodivergent, episod ke-79 ya. Memang satu topik yang berat. Kita sedang membincangkan rotan atau caning. Sepatutnya we are supposed to move on lah to another different topic, tapi masa kita break tadi, I think Desiree brought up something quite important. Desiree, I think can you please share? We'll do that for a little bit before we go on to our next topic. Silakan.
Boleh. Thank you. So I think perhaps I came off a little bit strong as well on not supporting caning in school, sebab at the end of the day kita semua ni manusia, dan memang akan adalah individu-individu yang mungkin take it a bit too far, don't do it in the right context. Ada satu contoh sebenarnya which I ceritakan tadi, seorang pelajar masa tu saya rasa pelajar lelaki, saya rasa masa tu dia darjah 4 ni di sekolah kebangsaan, dan pada hari tersebut nenek dia yang pergi ke sekolah untuk jemput pelajar ni, dan nenek diberitahu, oh cucu puan ada di pejabat. So nenek ni dia concern lah, so dia pergi terus ke pejabat, dan bila dia masuk ke pejabat dia nampak cucunya hampir di rotan, guru lelaki tengah pegang rotan and almost going to sebat this boy. And so nenek ni as a reflex pun dia menjerit, say what you doing, or stop. I can't remember exactly what the phrase was, tetapi cikgu lelaki ni berasa sangat marah, keluar dari bilik tersebut, dan dia telah menolak the nenek to the wall. So it was a bit of physical confrontation, dan ini memang dah bertahun lah, lebih dari 10-15 tahun lah insiden ni berlaku. So for me, mendengar cerita ni, and this family is very close to me as well, so memang this is one of the reasons why I feel very strongly about caning, sebab isu ni pun tidak dilapor ke mana-mana pihak. The parents in question berasa tak apalah, let's not make a big deal out of it. And kadang-kadang one of the reasons why parents tidak melapor adalah kerana one, tidak digalakkan oleh sekolah kerana prestasi sekolah akan terjejas, and secondly, parents juga takut sekiranya saya lapor, adakah anak saya akan ditarget atau dibuli lagi. Right? So these are a lot so this is one of the instances.
Okay, if I may just ask lah, isn't that why sekarang dah ada garis panduan?
Yeah,
So
sebab
we talking about dulu tak ada apa,
Yes.
3 kan?
Yes, no, I think this was after 2003 though. This incident memang was definitely after 2003.
Tapi sebelum 2003, masa saya dengan Nori dengan Desri pergi sekolah, tak ada pun garis panduan.
Tak ada. Masa kita pergi sekolah, perempuan ke lelaki ke sama je.
Cikgu
Kalau
lah
kena
boleh
dengan
balik
pembaris.
duster, boleh balik. Masa tu tak ada whiteboard, masa tu blackboard. So chalk pun kena balik.
Kena pukul dengan ruler.
Kena pukul dengan ruler. Lepas tu cubit kat peha. Semua tu
Buku terbang ke.
buku terbang tak apa. Tu bukan, it's not physical harm.
Buku terbang tu the book is physical harm.
Buku terbang is not physical harm.
Okay, so Desiree, what you're trying to say is sungguh pun ada garis panduan. Mungkin yelah, batasan-batasan ini, garis panduan semua akan ada, tapi manusia ni susah nak kawal lah. So you're saying jangan buka peluang
Exactly.
untuk tindakan seperti ni.
Yes. If we're talking about garis panduan, dalam mana-mana negara pun ada peraturan, there is the law, right? But people still break the law. So, that's a whole other topic. But we are talking about specifically school and caning.
And
I think
minors,
for children
kids,
and minors, right? The children aside, cikgu-cikgu pun ada tekanan tersendiri. They have their own mental state to worry about, kan? And again, we are all humans. That split second, kan? That split second, kalau cikgu is like, okay, I really lost it. You can't take that split second back.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, we're going to move on to the next chit-chat topic, which is another very, very heavy topic juga, because tak tahulah, macam after a lot of good news from, the budget dengan sekolah or apa, tapi ke autism dan sebagainya, antara berita-berita yang kita dengar ni pun adalah berita yang kita tak nak dengar lah. Okay. I think now we can finally talk about it. Kita tak pernah menyebut tentang kes ni pun kerana berada di mahkamah, dan secara jujur memang ini adalah sesuatu kes topik dan memang sukar bagi kami sebagai, I think, just as ibu. Kita juga, kita berada di sini, KFM ada di sini kerana kita semua mempunyai anak neurodivergent kan. So what am I talking about? It's case Allahyarham Zain Ryan. We have keputusan mahkamah, and I think now that we have the keputusan mahkamah, we want to talk about it a little bit. Apakah implikasi daripada keputusan ini, what does it all mean? For myself, as I mentioned to you all, I have a hard time with this one because I don't, kind of understand it's, so I have more questions than anything else. But yeah, both of you please speak and then I'll try to see what I have to say sebab memang susah, and I think who was it yang cadangkan we should talk about it, and I think we should talk about it. Okay, but please begin this discussion.
Anit first.
Again, we look at Anit first. Sorry lah, Anit. We just needed to lean on you today. These heavy things, and then they're related to the law and crime and punishment and all that. So kita pun pandang lah pada lawyer kita.
Okay, I'm not going to comment on the punishment. I'm just going to comment on the section under which the mother was found guilty. And that's section 31 of the Child Act. That means Akta Kanak-Kanak 2001. And she was found guilty for neglect. Okay.
Explain to us what that is.
Okay.
In our law lah. Okay, bawah.
Actually, neglect tu is bukan satu perbuatan. It's satu ketidakperbuatan. It's not an active act. It's an omission. It's an omission to do something. So in this case, she was found guilty for not for allowing Zain Ryan, Allahyarham Zain Ryan, to be in harm's way, and because at the point that he went missing, he was under her care.
Tak menjaga Zain Ryan dengan baik, dengan mencukupi.
Gagal menjaga. It's a failure. It's an omission. It's an omission. It's not an active thing. Bukan tidak menjaga, gagal. So there is an active duty on a parent untuk menjaga anak mereka. What the law actually says is to put them in a safe space, to give them shelter, to give them food, to give them nurturing. So that is what the law provides. It's an active duty of parents. Itu adalah tanggungjawab seseorang ibu bapa. Memberi tempat tinggal, tempat teduh, memberi makan, beri penjagaan. Ini adalah kegagalan untuk meneliti dan beri penjagaan sehingga beliau ditempatkan dalam sesuatu situasi yang berbahaya sampai nyawa beliau terjejas lah. So that was the outcome. So Desiree said something during the break, which raises another question, right? You said so. Who's responsible for the death?
Yes.
Okay. The verdict doesn't say who's responsible for the death.
Yeah, because he was strangled. So they know that there was an active thing that happened there. Okay, sorry, there was no omission of something that actually caused his death.
Yeah.
But
so the word used is permits him to be, exposes the child in a manner that permits him to be so abused, neglected, abandoned, or exposed.
But then who did the abuse? Who caused the death?
That's still a question.
Right? Yeah.
That's still a huge question.
The question is anything being done about that? I know we don't have a question. It's a rhetorical.
It's a rhetorical thing.
It's
It's a rhetorical thing. And I just want to say this. Parents of special need children or parents, because it's a chit-chat, right? Mak-mak anak OKU ni memang lebih tertekan daripada mak-mak anak typical, neurotypical. I can say this because I have both children, and I think my anxiety level untuk anak-anak yang neurodivergent tu memang sangat lebih tinggi lah. Saya rasa saya menjadi lebih stress dan lebih like jantung berdebar kalau menerima panggilan daripada sekolah anak saya yang neurodivergent compared to anak neurotypical, sebab it is just like what is next. So we know we are on a heightened sense of anxiety, penat. So believe me when I say this, kalau anak parent ni memang tidak sengaja, kalau for a few moments ingin pergi ke toilet lah, duduk dalam toilet ke, nak pergi berzikir ke, nak just take extra time just to breathe, to come back and deal with it again. I don't think any parent secara sengaja akan abandon anak atau
mengabaikan anak
atau permit anak tu, kalau dia tahu anak tu memang akan buat kerja berbahaya tu, memang kata pergilah.
Membiarkan anak dia macam terus masuk situasi bahaya. No parent will do that. But
we always make sure our kids are safe first before we like that breather ke dalam toilet ke
and then keputusan yang mahkamah ni ibu saja kan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sebab masa tu dia di bawah penjagaan ibu, ayah tengah bekerja. I think that's the facts.
Yeah.
And that's why ibu, but also the father was angry, right? Reported to be really angry at the outcome.
There are more questions of this verdict compared to answers, dan keputusan ini akan dirayu ke Mahkamah Tinggi. Dan ini adalah keputusan Mahkamah Session. So I think we need to really watch the space, but it raises a lot of questions. Lebih banyak pertanyaan yang timbul daripada verdict ini daripada kesimpulan lah macam mana nak buat ke apalah pengajaran dia. Pada saya, I don't have any answers.
Yeah. Sejak dari awal kes ni pun memang kan ini adalah definitely this was a big hot topic. We just made sure that it was what we felt was very important to talk about it in such a public way.
It's so different. It's like even Desiree, kalau anak you sakit, you tak bawa pergi hospital, you tak bawa pergi mendapatkan rawatan perubatan, and then anak you meninggal sebab dia sakit 2-3 hari, you memang tak bawa. That is clear neglect.
But there's a lot of probably more of those situations in the situation that happens.
Yes,
exactly.
Tapi it's because like what? Who took? I mean, maybe nobody took the case to court, right?
Exactly.
To charge the parents.
Or when they went to hospital, parent mungkin cakap, sehari je dia macam ni, and that's the history taken down. So how would pegawai perubatan tahu dia dah sakit 2 hari ke 3 hari? And even if sakit 2 hari, 3 hari tak bawa pergi hospital, siapa yang akan report kepada polis?
The onus is on the medical practitioner. Sekiranya dia rasa ada salah laku, then they will report. But we also have to acknowledge in public healthcare system, sometimes maybe they don't have the time because they are rushing through patients. I mean, some days it's not criticism of what they do.
Well, sometimes they can't pick up.
They can't pick it up.
No, but there's a lot going on, right? Because usually, kalau kita dengar tentang kes seperti inilah yang mungkin pernah berlaku, sebelum ni, kanak-kanak tu hilang dulu. Betul, right? So that happens, and then sometimes
because in
the
this
child is
section,
found,
it
but
doesn't need
in
to
this
be a
case,
harm. To prove offense under this section, there doesn't need to be a harm. Even if, right?
So once you already establish the neglect,
yes,
that's enough.
You
don't have to wait for a bad
outcome to happen. So it's like a lower threshold. I mean, the intention of the section and the intention of the legislation, it means akta ini bukan bertujuan untuk nak mendisiplin ibu bapa. It's only to protect anak. They want there to be protection for children in this country. And that's
Which is
not wrong, which is
necessary,
absolutely necessary.
But the bigger issue I think for us and connected to our community is macam Anik sebut tadi lah, kalau kita dah tahu dan memang jelas terang lagi bersuluh actually that it is harder, memang lebih susah untuk menjadi seorang penjaga kepada anak. Okay, you are neurodivergent. Then again we want to talk about where is the support system that's in place lah. Right? Bagaimana kalau kita sebut pada the next part is again like when we were talking about this keganasan, bullying, all that before, kita tak nak benda ni berlaku lagi. And I think in this case it is very very clear that one of the things that must happen is better support for the penjaga, for the parents, for the families, so that this kind of thing doesn't happen.
I agree, Nori, because in one parent support group that I happened to be in, I heard one parent saying, and this was her exact words, you know, there are times where I understand why certain animals kill their young. That was chilling to me.
Yeah.
And it goes to the mental state of the person
Yes.
for saying that.
No, and she's trying to rationalize. And in just that one line, she showed me how stretched she was in caring for her child.
Ladies, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Like remember bila kita sebut tentang kes di Singapura. Okay. Dan you know, kadang-kadang memang yelah kita bergurau. Tapi bergurau tu kerana situasi dan benda tu pernah terlintas pada fikiran kita semua. And you know, where it's like, oh, I'm going to kill my kid and kill myself. You know, it's like, you just say this kind of, you know, this kind of stuff. Because sometimes it's like, okay lah, bila kita dah sebut something, okay lah, cukup lah setakat tu je kan. Dan kita sebut dan kita kena lepaskan dan, you know, tak ada apa. Dan sudah tentu, you know, orang tidak akan, you know, biasanya memang tidak akan bertindak lah. Apa yang disebut tu kan, perangai manusia. But I mean, it happened in Singapore. And in this case where it was the, you know, the neglect part of it, which is, you know, we can easily kind of happen, which is just like, penat.
So in fact, there was an incident in Malaysia actually. I don't know whether the news picked it up, where a family of 3 were found dead and decomposed in their own house, and their adult son was autistic, and they had left a note to say that
Yeah, it wasn't.
That was in Seremban. Yes.
that was in Seremban. So and also goes to show, and you know, because I'm from that town, so I heard I grew up in Seremban. So news on the ground was that they also had tried to reach out for support. There were financial issues, and they didn't have enough support. So it goes to again the mental state of the family.
Yeah. So there are definitely bigger issues here in so many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Again, the community, society, bagaimana kita secara keseluruhan kalau kita menyebut tentang peranan masyarakat, jiran, keluarga, bukan sahaja keluarga terdekat lah, tetapi kalau kita sebut, bila kita sebut tentang masyarakat, community ni, memang orang di sekeliling lah, you know. And also if there's, well, I suppose we also have to ask how does, you know, government support, community supporting.
So I think with family planning,
people.
Nori, it's happened. I think the family division of the LPPKN, right? They also study this because probably in our time there was less of nuclear families. There were a lot of more joint families. You know, there were a lot more people around. And kalau tak ada pun, it was so common for our parents to suruh jiran tolong jenguk or you know, kalau kat kampung ke even in bandar, you know, you would go up to a jiran and say, saya nak pergi bank sekejap untuk 1 jam, then suruh anak pergi rumah jirau, rumah sebelah,
pergi tunggu rumah makcik so and so whatever kan.
You know, there was that space to go out and do it, and the community always rose to the occasion sebab the children became a collective responsibility.
So we're losing that sense
of collective responsibility, especially di bandar-bandar. Sebab you know,
yelah, hidup secara moden ni kita tak nak orang jaga tepi kain kita kan kononnya. Tapi the
Yeah.
outcome of that is bila kita dah tak sama mengenali, tak rapat dengan orang untuk benda-benda yang baik, nak minta tolong ke, nak berkawan or whatever, that thing also doesn't happen lah. Because you sendiri nak menjarakkan diri daripada orang lain kan. But now we're telling people that you can't do it alone. Kena bersama-sama dengan seramai mungkin.
Yeah, so this is what I said in the first segment earlier kan. Our children's safety is a collective responsibility. Bukan ibu bapa saja, bukan kementerian or menteri or cikgu, is everyone. Whether you have a child or not.
And I think in those days, kalau you dah jadi macam dah pergi rumah jiran, dah pergi bawa lah homework ke, pergi main ke, you would always have a meal there. And semakin tua anak tu, jiran pun akan tanya, hey, anak you ni macam mana? They will rejoice in every success. They will be part of your growth.
Yeah. There will be a big neighborhood celebration, katalah lulus apa dengan cemerlang ke, dapat pergi universiti and all this. You celebrate as well. So we're not just talking about the part where it's like memerlukan bantuan, sokongan ke apa. Tapi apa-apa yang kita nak raikan, kita raikan juga lah. So
anak dapat
positif.
Anak dapat masuk asrama, tiba-tiba like the whole jiran will come together. Bestnya, there's a whole kampung sending the child off.
Yes.
For the first time.
Exactly.
Oh, anak tu balik first time tu. Okay, semua nak datang, nak dengar cerita macam mana kat asrama. Or this jiran akan bawa, okay, ni sambal ikan bilis untuk you, untuk bawa pergi.
Yes.
It's those small things. Oh, makcik buat biskut. Somebody will come. So the child goes back with a sense of home, away from home.
Community.
Yeah,
Community.
something bigger. Okay, so I suppose this is another one of those, back to talking about importance of community again. Yeah.
Which is what we do in the family.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's hope we can hope, right?
Yes, we
We
can.
can hope it's not too late. We can still do it.
We can still do it. Okay, two very heavy topics. Terima kasih Desri dengan Anit sanggup bersama-sama dengan kami pada hari ini. Ialah chit-chat, not a fun or nice chit-chat today. Well, sometimes our chit-chats are hot topics, but hari ini ialah suatu yang memang memerlukan mungkin kita juga mengharap bahawa pendengar kan mungkin ambil sedikit masa untuk memikirkan topik-topik ini, kerana sebuah masyarakat itu terdiri daripada individu kan. Jadi tiap-tiap seorang boleh memainkan peranan. Tiap-tiap seorang tu mungkin boleh bertindak dulu. Dia dululah boleh menjadi seorang jiran yang baik atau kawan yang boleh diharapkan, right? So let's think about it. Memang isu-isu ini adalah isu besar, isu yang mungkin kita tidak akan melihat satu penyelesaian yang sempurna, tetapi kita sudah tentu boleh bermula untuk membuat mengambil langkah atau pendirian yang lebih positif. And whatever it is, again, whatever it is you can do as your own person, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish on that more positive thought. So seperti biasa, kita mengharap bahawa pendengar-pendengar dan penonton akan berinteraksi dengan kami di semua social media platform kami. Selain daripada YouTube, kami juga ada di Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, dan of course sebagai podcast ada di Spotify juga. Please tune in dan banyak maklumat selain daripada episod yang panjang ni. Selalunya kita akan share melalui snippet-snippet video yang lebih ringkas, shorts dan sebagainya. So please share, like, comment. Of course, we'd like you to subscribe and follow us seperti biasa. Join us in Kita Family. And we take inspiration from you. Dan kita memang selalu berusaha untuk berinteraksi dan menjawab, especially kalau ada apa-apa pertanyaan yang dilontarkan kepada kita atau cadangan. That's something that we really want to do, because really we're here for ourselves but also for you. Okay, I think that's it. Yes,
Yep.
we're done. Okay, terima kasih semua dan insyaAllah kita akan jumpa di episod yang akan datang. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Bye.